Hi, so welcome to lesson 3 of Unseen Poetry, and today we're going to move from unseen poetry using the poem that we studied this week, You Being Born, to move into creative writing. So our title for today is Describing the Sky with an Extended Metaphor. Underline it, set your page up, make sure you've got your learning objective down, and our learning objective is to describe the sky at the moment before a child's birth using an extended metaphor. And the idea here is the extended metaphor in the sky will capture the parents' feelings, okay, and the parents' emotions at this point of change and chaos and turbulence in their life. So what we want to make sure that we do is, as we're doing our writing and as we're thinking through our planning, is that we want to use our versatile vocabulary, and we want to be using the words chaos and order, and we want to be using the words secure and vulnerable at different points of our descriptive piece. So the first thing that I want us to look at is what actually is an extended metaphor. Without doing that, we can't really write one. So lots of you will know what a metaphor is already. So a metaphor will just say, a metaphor is an imaginative way of describing something by referring to something else which is the same in a particular way. It's a comparison. Okay, you compare it to something else by saying it is something else. Where it's different is that an extended metaphor carries on that comparison over a sentence, more than one sentence, or even a paragraph. So to extend the metaphor, carry it on for more than one sentence, or even a paragraph. Or if you're awesome, you could do it linking several paragraphs. Maybe your first paragraph and your last paragraph refer back to the same thing. Okay, let's try again. So I've moved so it doesn't feel like you're doing a lesson in an earthquake. The camera won't shake everywhere. Back to extended metaphors. An example of an extended metaphor will look something like this. The dark is an unknown and scary black cloak. Unknown and scary black cloak. Okay, so that's the first part of our metaphor, right? We're comparing the dark itself, nighttime, to a black cloak. Okay, something that you wear over your shoulders that covers you, that normally keeps you warm, but also shrouds you and hides you. An unknown black cloak. A place, take it further, a place of nightmares. Now, that's our first sentence. We need to extend that over a sentence. So let's take it a little bit further. This is where we've got the extension of that first metaphor. It being The dark, it, is a deep hole where light cannot reach. And where horror lives. Okay, so there we have our first metaphor. It's a scary black cloak. We extend it slightly more with it being a place of nightmares. We take it further again with it being a deep hole where light cannot reach. And we take it further again, say where horror lives. So this is the extension of that metaphor. Spell it correctly. Right, now make sure you've got your definition down, make sure you've got your example down. Okay, if you haven't got it down now, just pause the video, write it down, and then replay when you're ready. So, what we want to do is we want to teach you how to use extended metaphor at the start of your creative writing to really make it punchy, to make it effective, to make it engaging for whoever is reading this. When you're grown, you become a novelist, or you write for a newspaper or whatever, or you're just writing for your friends, or if you're just writing for an exam, just to make it as effective and brilliant as you can. And there's a structure for that. The structure that we're going to teach you is called START. It's really easy to remember. Okay, START is specifically for creative writing, and it's a clear structure for it. And START is great because it tells you what to write. It tells you what order to write it. Each section of it is a paragraph, so it structures your paragraphs. And it works perfectly for your language paper GCSE, so it works perfectly for language paper 1, question 5, which is a really big hitter. It is worth 40 marks, which is 50% of the entire paper itself, or 25% of your entire English language grade. So it's really important that you nail it and that you are practicing it all of the time. So the first bit that we're looking at is the S in START. Okay, and this S here stands for the sky. Okay, so you will often get an image as a prompt for you to look at. And the image that I want to look at the moment or just before this child's birth is this one here. Okay, a good technique for attacking the images is just to go through it and just pick out 3 or 4 details that are interesting, that you will want to describe and look at. So if I'm thinking about the ones in here, I'll probably have a look at the lightning. That'd be the first thing that I attack. Then I'm looking at maybe these clouds up in the corner, the darkness of the clouds. But I also quite like the contrast between these clouds here that are dark and these clouds here that are light. And I really like the contrast between the black and the orange. Okay, so we've got some contrast in our clouds. And then you won't be able to see it that well in this picture, my printer's not great, but there are some houses in the distance, and you'll be able to see this on your copy of it in your shared files. So we've got these houses. So those are the things that I'm gonna look at. The contrast of the clouds. It almost seems like the sun might be peeping through. Is there a sun there peeping through, trying to escape could be. But what I also really like is the colour. I'm just going to jot down some of the colours, not just, grey. I'm going to try and work out what other shades of colours that we've got in there as well. So we've got lots of different types of blue. I think we probably have indigo. I think we probably have violet. I think we probably, what else is in there? There's this kind of like burnt orange, or this fiery orange. That doesn't look like much like a Y. So those are all things that I want to make sure that I'm talking about, that I'm including when I do my write-up. So what I want you to do now is I just want you to add your own description. So maybe give me some colours to do with this. Okay, give me another colour. Give me some ideas about how you might describe the shape of the lightning. Okay, what does it look like? Is it a cable? Is it a spider's leg? How does it look to you? Give me 2 things there. I need to get this back in focus, don't I? And then maybe what do these cloud patterns look like? You don't have to say like it looks like a horse or anything like that, but like what kind of thing does it look like to you? And does it look like dried mud? Does it look like a whirlpool? Entirely up to you. And then how would you describe the shape of those houses? Are they in shadow or are they in something else? Give me 2 things. Okay, once you've done that, it's time to move on. So let's just turn the page, and we're getting further on to sort of the planning stage. And this is the planning stage that you're going to start running through in your mind, and the more you do it, the better you're going to get. So we're going to make our extended metaphor now. What does that sky look like that we could use as a longer comparison? So to me, I'm thinking that sky looks a bit like I'm guessing a patchwork quilt to me. That's what it is to me. So if you're not sure, a quilt is something that you put over your duvet on your bed to warm you up. Okay, and patchwork means that all of the parts of it are sewn together from rags. So if you haven't seen one before, very, very simply, it looks a little bit like this. You've got lots of different sections of fabric that are all cut out, put next to each other, and then sewn together. And these were really popular sort of like in the Victorian times, just in the early 1900s, just after both wars, etc., etc., especially in the countryside, where people would make a lot of their own stuff. You might even have grandparents who make similar things. And then these bits of fabric, they're all sewn together like this. So they're often very, very pretty, made from loads of different fabrics, but they also do let the light escape through them. A bit like the sky and the clouds, like the light can get through it, and you can see beauty as well as the fact that it's not perfect. So this is my patchwork quilt. It looks a bit like that to me. I'm thinking, right, well, how might I describe my patchwork quilt? Well, I would say a patchwork quilt is literally a blanket, so I'm going to keep that. It's kind of one of the ideas we had earlier. Around the edges, it's probably been cut with scissors, so it's probably a bit frayed. Bits of stitching falling out. It's old, so I'm going to say it's probably ripped in parts, or at least it's ripping. I think it could be tearing away at the seams, again playing on the same idea. But at the same time, you know, I've had it for a long time, you have it for a long time, your grandparents might have made it. It might be something that's quite constant, and it might make you feel quite secure as well. Or is it something that helps you when you're feeling vulnerable? You could also say that the pattern itself is quite chaotic. Look at this, the versatile vocabulary is coming back. We've got chaotic, vulnerable, and secure. So these are words again that you can see it's really good to use again and again. And then also, like a blanket, you can hide things under it. So it could be concealing something, and concealing something means to hide it. So those are some of the words that I'm gonna want to use. So I'd say, like, I could compare the sky. If I was to justify it, say I would compare the sky in the image to a patchwork quilt, because it is frayed and tearing like the clouds, but also because it's full of lots of different colours, almost stitched together, and because it is full of lots of colour stitched together. Those indigos, those blues, those turquoises. Well, I'll write turquoise down because that's quite a good word to use. Turquoise. It's a tricky one to spell. So what I want you to do now, once you've got the notes down, apologies I didn't move it up, still getting used to this recording lessons business. Put it on pause if you need to. What I want you guys to do now is I want you to write down what you would compare the sky to. So have a think of all of the different things it could be like, and then start similarly to me with the sky equals, and what does the sky look like to you? Okay. Then what I want you to do is, once you've done that, is just round the edges. What are the 6 things? More if you're feeling like you've got a lot more to say. Push yourself to 8 or 10. That describe the sky, the actions of it, how it feels when comparing it to that extended metaphor you're going to create. Does it rip? Does it tear? Does it bubble? Does it pop? Does it crack? Does it fizzle? Does it hide? Does it reveal? And then 7 and 8 for your extensions. Again, whilst you're doing that, if you need a little bit more time, just put it on pause. And then I want to justify your reasons. I want you to then just write up, I would compare the sky to, and then tell me why. Now, remember, this is just the moment before the birth, so there are going to be all sorts of feelings and emotions running through the parents-to-be. Might be fear, might be wonder, might be expectation, might be joy. How does your extended metaphor reveal those things? How does the sky reveal those emotions? So your tone could go either way, the tone that you're choosing to use. You could be looking at fear. You could be looking at worry or apprehension. They mean similar things. Or you could be looking at joy. You could be trying to create a tone of wonder. Or you could contrast the two of those things, because a parent is probably feeling both. And if you can manage to contrast them, both of them at the same time, then you are onto a winner. Right, once you've got your ideas down, I want to show you what it looks like written. It looks a bit like this. We're going to follow a very, very clear formula. Okay. So this is our model. Okay, underline it. If you've got a ruler, all the better. Now, we're going to start it with a one-word sentence, and we're going to start it with something that's really powerful. I'm going to steal one of the versatile vocabulary pieces. I'm going to start it with chaos, full stop. Okay, and then I'm going to repeat it, the next one, utter chaos. Okay, reflecting the chaos in the parent's mind, what's going on, the movements of the poem, that kind of idea that they don't know what's going to happen. But then I'm gonna describe that emotion using the sky. Okay, so you will always start with a one-word sentence, then a two-word sentence, including the one from the first one. Okay, so you always have to repeat it in the next one. Chaos, utter chaos. The sky was a ragged blaze of purple, blue, and indigo. Colon. Now I'm going to say what my extended metaphor is. So I've got my colon here. I'm going to say a discarded cloth, a patchwork quilt, full stop. It almost, and this is a phrase that I really like as well, and a phrase that you should definitely be using. It almost. Now I'm going to steal my vocabulary that I collected earlier around here. I'm going to try and use as much of this as possible. Okay, I think I'm going to go for this one here first. It almost concealed or hid. It almost concealed. What did it conceal? I'm thinking about that image. What is it hiding? Well, I'm looking back and I know, right, it's hiding something behind there. There is sort of like a fiery sort of sense of heat. So I reckon the sun is behind here somewhere. So I reckon it almost concealed the sun. But the sun is trying to peek out. It's trying to reassure me that everything's okay. So if it's trying to reassure me, what's it doing? It's probably going to be smiling at me. Tell me that everything's going to be fine. The child's going to be born. It's all going to be well. So it's going to be the smiling sun. Beneath which peered through like a small, a small rip in the fabric, and a small rip is something that I plan to use. Appear through a small rip in the fabric, so I want to make sure that I'm using that because I plan to use it. Now this is a phrase, a bit like it almost, this is a phrase that I really want you to use. Here and there. Here and there. So you start telling me what's going on around it. You're painting the picture here and there. The thick. And again, going back, thinking about what I described in my plan. The thick blanket frayed, ripping. What's it ripping? It's ripping through the clouds, ripping apart at the seams, ripping apart the stitching, and stitching's a new one I've just thought of here, so I'm going to use it as well, and ripping apart at the seams, suddenly to reveal furious. Well, we've got this lightning that's revealed over here, haven't we? It's being pulled apart almost. This is the stitching coming undone, the sun's coming through here, and we've got this lightning that's kind of like the thread that is being removed. The thick blanket frayed, ripping apart the seams suddenly to reveal I'm going to go for furious, maybe not cables of lightning, threads of lightning, yeah, that could work, threads of lightning that tore. How did they tear? Happily, angrily, sadly? I'm going to go for angrily. Angrily through. Full stop. Now, I've talked about this a bit, talked about this a bit. Haven't talked about these bits or this bit. I haven't talked the contrast of the colour here or the houses. Maybe I'll just bring in the houses to kind of bring the human element in. How do they see the shadows? It's more like a silhouette, it's not quite a shadow. So I'll say the silhouette of the houses beyond were slowly losing their shape, their form, their dimension. Yeah, their dimensions as the thickening darkness of what, like, keeping back with my metaphor, the thickening darkness of my quilt was laid above. Darkness of the quilt was laid out above. So that's the kind of thing that I want you to slowly walk towards. Right? We've got this sense of this quilt creating chaos and darkness, all of these emotions that are probably created by the lightning and the dark, that are probably racing through the heads of these parents to be when they're looking out the window. Will everything be okay, or will it be a disaster? We've got the sun versus the lightning. What I want you to do now is I want you to write up your own, and I want you to include the following things. So this is your checklist. Okay, first part of your checklist is use your plan. Okay, 1, use your plan. If you've got words on there that you've planned to use them. Okay, use your plan number 1. 2, okay, use your versatile vocab. So you've got some brilliant words that you can use. Use chaos, use order, use veneer, maybe use superficial, maybe you won't need to. Okay. Use secure or vulnerable. Pick the right ones that describe the image you want to create. Then, what you need to make sure you do is you start with a 1-word sentence. With a big, powerful, punchy word in it. Your second sentence is a 2-word sentence. And you know that it is going to include, like my one here, it's going to include a repetition of the word in your first one. Okay? Chaos, utter chaos. Vulnerability, utter vulnerability. Okay? Security, utter security. Whatever it is, depending on what image you want to create and what atmosphere you want to create. Then you're going to make sure, just like I have here, okay, you're using a colon and then you're describing your extended metaphor. Colon, then extended metaphor. And then you're developing it. And this is the bit where you get your marks and you show yourself to be a brilliant writer. Is that you use the following phrases. It almost. Here and there. And try and use verb plus verb. What I mean by that is ripping and fraying, tearing. So it'd be something like that. That would be one example of it. Or you could do tearing and wrenching. Or you could do something like cracking and pulsing to show the movement, of the clouds, to show the fizz of the lightning itself. So that's your challenge. Okay, write that down on your paper, draft it. Once you've drafted it, you know, the same as before, you're going to be putting it straight into your student notebook online.